Top 3 draft pick for the Detroit Lions. A 2021 draft pick joins the active roster, and Jameson Williams most likely will not play this Sunday. Hello everyone, my name is Derek. You already know what to do. If you don't, we talk all things Detroit Lions, so consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. The Los Angeles Rams currently hold the 3rd pick in the NFL draft. Now, you guys know I don't like to talk about the draft this early, but this was too good to pass up. Right now, the Los Angeles Rams have the 3rd overall pick in the NFL draft, and I believe that they won't win another game, and they will probably move up to 2 and have the 2nd overall pick. So with that being said, as of right now, the Detroit Lions have the 3rd overall pick and the 12th overall pick with their own pick from the 2023 NFL draft. Who we take with this pick is going to be a hot take for the remainder of this year and going into the NFL draft coming up in April. Do we take a quarterback to replace Jared Goff or sit behind Jared Goff to eventually surpass him? Or do we take a defender? Now, I believe that the Detroit Lions are going to probably have the 2nd overall pick because the Rams are going to lose some games and the Chicago Bears will win some. Right now, the Bears hold the 2nd overall pick, and I think the Detroit Lions will probably take Will Anderson with that pick. But let me know in the comments below. I violated my rule, man, talked about the draft, but like I said, I didn't think the Rams would have a top 3 draft pick, and they're not done losing just yet. Charles Harris has been placed on injured reserve, and James Houston, the 6th round pick, he was taken right before Malcolm Rodriguez. He is going to be elevated to the active roster. James came in and set a record, had 2 sacks and 5 snaps for the Detroit Lions, and we kind of felt that a active roster spot may be coming. Now, I'm assuming Charles Harris, the spot from Charles Harris, will make the room for James Houston. So now that leads most of our draft picks on the field. So out of the 6 defenders that were taken in the 2022 NFL draft, that makes Aiden Hutchinson, Josh Pascal, Chase Lucas, Kirby Joseph, Malcolm Rodriguez, and James Houston. All of them will have played in a game this year. And Chase Lucas, he's been hurt, but he was a 7th round pick. So at this point, he would have to exceed expectations to really make a difference. But James Houston, elevated to the active roster. We have 6 more games to go. So he's going to be able to show what he can do beyond those 5 snaps. Now, I believe that those 5 snaps is all he had for that game. Now, here's the thing about that. I was very upset when he was cut and placed on the practice squad. I thought that was a wasted pick. But the young man came out, made the most of his opportunity, and we get to see it. And I was very proud for him to be representing an HBCU, Jackson State, Deion Sanders, and that was good to see. And I think Jackson State is already doing very well. And I think the fact that Houston came in, did his thing, that's going to be awesome for that program. Deion Sanders may be leaving Jackson State. I'm not sure, but that's still a big deal. So shout out to Brad Holmes and James Houston for being elevated to the active roster. And last but certainly not least, at this point, I want to just fold my hands and pout because Jameson Williams, according to Dan Campbell, is a long shot to play against the Jacksonville Jaguars this Sunday. Now, originally, after the whole bye week and this and that, I said that the Minnesota Viking game was the one that we could probably see him in. I got kind of lured into thinking that it could be Jacksonville, but one of my videos, I did say that the Minnesota Viking game would be the one that we saw him home, and that's probably going to be the one we saw because that game would have given him 3 weeks or 2 weeks of practice, and it always seems that 2 to 3 weeks is what they need. Now, Chark played 3 days from being off the injured reserve. But Jameson Williams, it just felt like the way that they're doing this with him, that it was going to be a slow process. Right now, that means 5 games that Jameson Williams hopefully will play, but it could very well be 4, which would suck. Here is my final stance on Jameson Williams. This is it. I'm not making any more predictions after this. Jameson Williams will play in the Minnesota Vikings game because at that point, the Detroit Lions will have 2 home games left, and that means that it's the Minnesota Vikings, and then it's 2 road games, and then we're back to being at home for our final home game of the season. And I think they're going to want to give the home crowd something to see and not just leave it to that last game for the season at home. And now to wrap up the video, this is actually a bonus, something I just thought about right now. I did how the Detroit Lions can make the playoffs on Friday, and we needed to win, first of all. That didn't happen. And a couple other things happened that we needed to happen. We needed the Packers to lose. Basically, every team that was behind the Detroit Lions entering Week 12 is still behind the Detroit Lions. The Falcons lost, but they were ahead. We needed them to lose, and they gave that game away. But the Arizona Cardinals, the New Orleans Saints, and the Green Bay Packers all lost. They're all now 4-8. The Detroit Lions are 4-7. They are still in 10th place. They didn't go up or down as of this moment. Now, the Atlanta Falcons, they lost. They should have won that game, but I think the bigger thing is that the Seattle Seahawks, who were in the playoffs, have completely dropped out now. The Washington Commanders have taken over the 7th seed. So with the Raiders winning against the Seahawks own the tiebreaker against the Detroit Lions. We need them to be out of the playoffs. They need to be 6 or out completely, because if it comes down between them or us, they'll get in. Now, it needs to come down between the Commanders and the Giants for the 7th seed for the Detroit Lions to hold the tiebreaker. The Washington Commanders have won 6 of 7 games after starting 1-4. And for the most realistic chance of the Detroit Lions to make the playoffs, they must go 5-1 down the stretch. The Buffalo Bills game really hurt us because we faced the Minnesota Vikings at home, and we can't take any team for granted. We still have to play the Jets. They got to win yesterday with Mike White. So none of these teams are given for us to beat. I mean, Jacksonville came off that win yesterday, really put up a fight against the Baltimore Ravens and came out on top. So none of these games are gimme games for the Detroit Lions, and we need to not look past any of them. I will say this, all the hope that I hold out, all the math that I do, if we lose against the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's going to be tough to win 5 straight. So I'd much rather get a couple, maybe lose 1. I would rather win 3 and then lose 1. I know we can't look past any team in the National Football League, but my biggest concern right now is the New York Jets, because we play them on the road, and the Minnesota Vikings, even though we played them at home. Now, with the Vikings, we played them. The last 3 games against the Vikings have been slugfest, nail biters, and it's been a bout either way. And the record is 2-1 in favor of the Minnesota Vikings. And as far as the Jets are concerned, we don't know what quarterback we're going to get just yet. And we also play them in MetLife Stadium. We won against the Giants in that very same stadium, so it is capable of happening. So the Lions' slim playoff hopes, I think, is at 10% right now to make the playoffs with 6 games left. I believe 10 wins gets us in, 9-8. There is an off chance that 8-9 will get us in there as well, but too many things have to happen at that point, and I think that's a even longer shot than obviously Jameson Williams playing this Sunday. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Who do you want to see the Detroit Lions take with the Los Angeles Rams first round pick? How do you feel about James Houston making the active roster, being elevated to the active roster? Do you feel like Brad Holmes has really knocked it out the park? And how do you feel about Jameson Williams having to wait 1 more week before we see him take the field? My name is Derek. This is Detroit Lions Syndicate. Make sure you subscribe. Trying to get to 7K before the end of the season. That would be fantastic. So consider subscribing if you haven't already. You guys are awesome. Take care of yourself. And as always, go Lions.